It seems like a lot of the themes you write about in the book, I had this sort of visceral reaction of, yeah, I should be doing that, but I don't do enough of it. It might be what our colleagues Pfeffer and Sutton would call a knowing-doing gap, where you sort of recognize, hey, this is an effective practice, and then you look at your calendar and you start thinking, yeah, I'm a total failure when it comes to doing the practice. And I'm curious about what advice you have for closing those kinds of gaps. So we were talking earlier briefly about reflection and how important reflection is, but how few leaders actually do it. What can you suggest for making sure that we actually do build that time into our schedules?
Yeah, so, I mean, in part, this is why I'm both an operations professor and a behavioral scientist. When I started studying learning, I thought it was just, a matter of figuring out the processes, right? As a good, engineer, you have inputs, you have outputs, kind of map them together, and we're done. And as nice as it would be, perhaps, if it worked that way, we've got people, and people gum things up, right? This is why the psychology matters so much. And so, things like you're pointing out this reflection, I think, folks like Stephen Covey got it right. This tyranny of the urgent over the important is kind of a constant theme through life, that, we know what we should do, but then somebody walks into our office asking if we can go to this meeting or if we can, knock this out for them. And we know it's not as important as, an alternative, but it's right there in front of us. And so we go ahead and we run down that path. And so, as I wrote the book, part of it was to, hey, let's understand the behavior, the psychology, and why we get in the way. But I actually think we can go back to some of the operations, some of the process side, to come up with a better approach. That one of the things the research tells us on both sides is that we often do a better job taking care of our future self as opposed to our present self. So in the moment, right now, if you ask me, hey, am I going to reflect for 15 minutes or am I going to go down the hall and chat with somebody? I might have the urge to go down the hall and chat with them. On the other hand, if I'm making my schedule for tomorrow or for next week, I might actually do a pretty good job of blocking it, saying, look, I need to knock out an hour in the morning to write. It doesn't matter kind of when my day starts. It doesn't matter what else is going on. I've got to have that hour to write, or I need that 15 minutes to reflect. And so I think one of the strategies I'm a big fan of is very actively managing the calendar. Blocking that time depends where you are. Some places you can tell everybody what you're doing. And others you might need to just kind of come up with a code word. So look, I'm in a meeting. That meeting happens to be myself reflecting. But coming up with those sorts of really accountability approaches and processes to protect ourselves from ourselves, frankly.